Hi everyone, hope you are doing well. Hoping that you are doing well. Let's start a quick discussion of 50 questions related to clinical microbiology, which is especially needed for your PG entrance examination like NEET and upcoming next examinations, right? See, those who have attended my live lectures or recorded lectures, for them it is very easy to follow these questions and easy to understand the concepts hidden inside. For those who have not attended my live lectures or recorded lectures, those who have not taken my recorded lectures, they can also follow these very easily, but very difficult to understand some concepts hidden inside. Otherwise you can also follow. With that introduction to this session, let's have a quick discussion of 50 questions related to clinical microbiology. So the first question is: a patient presented with diarrhea associated with blood, stool, mucus and fever. What is your likely diagnosis? So options are Giardia lamblia, Entamoeba histolytica, Salmonella typhi and Isospora species. So the here in the question, if you see, the main thing what they are discussing here is a patient is with diarrhea and associated with blood and mucus. Diarrhea associated with blood and mucus is nothing but dysentery. Dysentery. That means indirectly they are mentioning dysentery here. So Giardia lamblia causes what? Giardia lamblia causes diarrhea. Diarrhea. Entamoeba histolytica causes dysentery. Salmonella typhi causes diarrhea, and Isospora also causes diarrhea. So all these species. First, there are three parasites: Giardia, Entamoeba histolytica, and Isospora. So all these parasites causes diarrhea except Entamoeba histolytica. Entamoeba histolytica causes dysentery. So Salmonella typhi also causes diarrhea. We all know that if you take parasitology, in the parasitology, the most common protozoa causing dysentery is Entamoeba histolytica. Most other protozoa causes diarrhea. Entamoeba histolytica is the only one which causes, or not only one, you cannot say only one. The most common protozoa causing dysentery is Entamoeba histolytica. Otherwise, most of the protozoa they cause diarrhea. Similarly, if you come to helminthology, among the helminths also most of them they cause diarrhea except Trichinella which causes dysentery. Among the bacteria, sir, most of the bacteria they cause diarrhea except Shigella which causes dysentery. So dysentery means, what you have to remember is, in protozoa Entamoeba histolytica, and in helminths Trichuris trichura, in helminths Trichuris trichura, and in bacteriology Shigella. There are other bacteria and parasites also which causes dysentery, but these are the important ones. So in the question they are mentioning dysentery, diarrhea with blood and stool. Therefore the answer is B here, that is Entamoeba histolytica. Very easy to answer. But what happens, the confusion is, once in the examination hall, while writing NEET or next, some 300 questions will be there, and you will be having an examination pressure. In that pressure, suddenly when you usually most of the students they don't read the entire question. Once they see diarrhea means, okay sir, Entamoeba histolytica, dysentery, Giardia, diarrhea. That's all we remember. Most of the students they hurry up to answer Giardia. So that is the point, or that is the area where you go wrong. You should be cool and calm, and you should read the entire question in the examination. That is a very important point. So answer here is Entamoeba histolytica causes dysentery. Rest all the options causes diarrhea. With that, moving on to second question: treatment given to Entamoeba cyst carriers. This is the very important point. See, the treatment for all intestinal protozoa, the protozoa which infects intestine, for all of them the treatment is, drug of choice is metronidazole. But if they mention carriers, that too for Entamoeba histolytica cyst carriers, they are not suffering from infection. They are just the carriers. They are shedding the cyst in their stool. Is it necessary to treat the carriers? Yes, it is necessary to treat the carriers, because carriers they do not suffer from the disease, but they shed the cyst in their stool and they can spread the infection to other people. That's why necessary to treat the carriers. Sir, how to treat Entamoeba cyst carriers? See, paramomycin, diloxonide furoate and iodoquinol. So all these three can be used for the treatment of cyst carriers. All these three can be used. Now when all these three can be used, if it is a PGI type of question, you have to answer all the three. D, C, D is the option if it is a PGI type of question. In other examination, your answer should be, you have to select the best and appropriate answer. The best and appropriate answer for this question is paramomycin, because paramomycin is the most commonly used drug for Entamoeba cyst carriers, right? So once again I'm telling you, if there are more than one options, if more than one option is right, in PJ you have to select all the options. In other examinations you have to look for the appropriate answer, or the most common answer, right? You have to go for the appropriate answer. That is the most common thing in that situation, or in that concept which they are explaining in the question. So next question, moving on to next question. Girl visited her friend's village, develops nasal discharge and meningitis. So here the clinical feature is meningitis. And next important point what they are mentioning is dies in 5 days. Dies in 5 days means it is an acute condition. It is an acute condition and there is a meningitis condition. Options are Naegleria, Acanthamoeba, Balamuthia and Sappinia. If you see these options, so all these 4 are free living amoeba. All these 4 are free living amoeba, and free living amoebas are neuropathogenic amoebas. Free living amoebas are neuropathogenic amoebas. That means they cause infection in the brain. Now all these causes infection in the brain. Naegleria fowleri causes what? PAM, primary amoebic meningoencephalitis. M means meningoencephalitis, whereas Acanthamoeba and Balamuthia causes GAE. GAE means granulomatous amoebic encephalitis. Sappinia causes encephalitis. So these are the conditions. So all these 3 B, C, D causes encephalitis. The Naegleria is the only one which causes meningoencephalitis. That means meningitis plus encephalitis, right? Therefore, meningitis causing bacteria is only one, protozoa is only one here, Naegleria fowleri. One more thing which goes in favor of Naegleria fowleri is dies in 5 days. So it is an acute condition. Acute condition. Patient may die in 3 to 5 days. All other conditions are chronic conditions. That's why granulomatous. Granulomatous means usually chronic condition. And Sappinia is a new neuropathogenic or free living amoeba which is identified. So here the option goes is Naegleria fowleri, because 2 things goes in favor. One is meningitis, second patient dies in 5 days. That is an acute condition. So if you talk about the next question, 4th question, a patient presented with features of acute meningoencephalitis in the casualty. CSF on wet mount microscopy revealed motile unicellular organism. Again, acute condition, meningoencephalitis. Therefore the answer is Naegleria fowleri. There is no doubt in that. You cannot think, sir, earlier also the answer was Naegleria fowleri. In this next question also answer is Naegleria fowleri. Yeah, it is possible. So many times in the examination it may happen. What will happen usually? So they will give the same answer as right. But students, what they will think, because Naegleria was right in that option, it is not possible. Maybe I am wrong. That is what the confusion happens. But you should not think like that. Read the question. If your concepts are clear, then same answers can be right in the successive questions. The 5th question, a patient presented to casualty with difficulty in swallowing. On examination and investigation, there was megaesophagus and megacolon. Again, clinical based question, megaesophagus and megacolon. So megaesophagus, megacolon is suggestive of Chagas disease. And Chagas disease is caused by protozoa. Which protozoa? Sir, blood and tissue protozoa, trypanosoma. In the trypanosoma, there are 2 species, Brucei and Krusei. Sir, Krusei causes Chagas disease. How to remember? Sir, very easy to remember. C for C. Krusei causes Chagas disease. Brucei causes sleeping sickness. Okay, fine, sir. Understood. Now they are talking about Chagas disease caused by trypanosoma Krusei. First option, Romanov's sign is a diagnostic feature. Yes, sir. Romanov's sign is a diagnostic feature. What is that? Unilateral conjunctival edema. When trypanosoma Krusei enters through the eye, it causes edema. That is Romanov's sign. Conjunctival edema. That is Romanov's sign. Tsetse fly is the vector? No, sir. What is the vector for Chagas disease? Sir, Reduvik bug is the vector. Culture medium is triple N medium. Yes, sir. Leishmania and trypanosoma both are brothers. Both are flagellated blood and tissue protozoa, and for them the culture medium is triple N medium, right? Novi, McNeil and Nicole medium. Has amastigote and trypomastigote forms are the morphological forms? Yes, amastigote and trypomastigote are the morphological forms in trypanosoma, whereas amastigote and promastigote are present in Leishmania, right? With this here the answer is D. All are the diagnostic features except, so you should not forget to see this except. All are the diagnostic feature except Tsetse fly is the vector, because Tsetse fly is not the vector. Reduvik bug is the vector for Krusei. Tsetse fly is the vector for sleeping sickness, that is Brucei. A patient from Bihar. Once you see the Bihar word, then you should suspect the examiner is expecting the answer Leishmaniasis, because 70 to 80% of the Leishmaniasis cases occur in Bihar, in the entire India, right? So OPD with mucocutaneous lesion. This is the second point, mucocutaneous lesion. Third point, RK39 antigen positive. RK39 antigen positive. RK39 antigen present only in Leishmania. Therefore, now a patient from Bihar, RK39 antigen is positive, then 100% the examiner is asking, discussing about Leishmaniasis. Leishmaniasis, there are 3 types of Leishmaniasis: cutaneous, mucocutaneous and systemic, visceral. cutaneous, mucocutaneous, and visceral. There are three types of cutaneouses. Now they are mentioning mucocutaneous type of leishmaniasis. Mucocutaneous type of leishmaniasis is nothing but nasopharyngeal leishmaniasis. Right? They are asking for the diagnosis. A patient from Bihar with mucocutaneous lesion, RK39 antigen positive. RK39 is the one which is indicating leishmania disease here. And one more thing what is favoring is Bihar. Bihar means don't think that all the patients in Bihar will develop leishmania. It's not like that. Other diseases can also occur in Bihar. Just it is an additional point to which directs you towards the diagnosis. Mucocutaneous means nasopharyngeal, nose. Outside it is skin, inside it is mucus, pharynx it is mucus. So mucocutaneous lesion mainly involves nasopharynx. That's why nasopharyngeal leishmaniasis is the answer here. Syphilis, malaria, lymphogranuloma venereum, they can't be the answer, right? Because you know that endemic syphilis is also known as Bejel caused by Treponema endemicum. Cerebral malaria caused by the Plasmodium. Lymphogranuloma venereum caused by Chlamydia trachomatis, right? So answer here is nasopharyngeal leishmaniasis. A patient presented with mild form of leishmaniasis, what is the drug prescribed orally for the treatment? So patient with leishmaniasis, what is the drug? Orally, this is the clue here, orally. All the drugs for leishmaniasis used systemically, paromomycin, pentamidine, stemoquin, miltefosine, all are the drugs which are used to treat leishmaniasis, but the only oral drug which can be used is miltefosine. So here miltefosine is the answer. Now 8th question, why are schizont and late trophozoite stages of Plasmodium falciparum not seen in peripheral blood smear, right? So this is one of the differentiating point between Vivax and Plasmodium falciparum. So schizonts are seen in peripheral blood smear of Vivax, but schizonts are not seen in peripheral blood smear of falciparum. So they are asking why. So the answer is they are sequestered in spleen. No. Due to adherence to capillary endothelium, they are not seen in the peripheral blood. Yes. Due to antigen, and no, right? So the schizonts in case of falciparum infection, they are adherent to the endothelium of the capillaries. That's why they are not seen in the peripheral blood, right? So next question 9th, which type of malaria is associated with a patient who is suffering from renal failure and nephrotic syndrome? See, most of the times what we discuss is, sir, falciparum associated with renal failure, and the condition is ATN, acute tubular necrosis, and Plasmodium malariae is associated with nephrotic syndrome. Plasmodium malaria is associated with nephrotic syndrome. Now, once students know this, how to differentiate the complications of falciparum and malaria, when they read the question renal failure and nephrotic syndrome, once they read renal failure, suddenly they will jump to falciparum. But the answer for this question is malaria, because see, ultimately nephrotic syndrome may lead to renal failure. There is no doubt in that. Ultimately, nephrotic syndrome may lead to renal failure. But in once acute tubular necrosis have set in, renal failure has happened, there is no nephrotic syndrome. So nephrotic syndrome, it does not occur in falciparum. Nephrotic syndrome occur only in Plasmodium malariae, and nephrotic syndrome may lead to renal failure. That's why you should not suddenly jump. You have to, once they are mentioning renal failure, you have to look whether nephrotic syndrome is there or not. Nephrotic syndrome is the key point here. If nephrotic syndrome is there, whatever may be the condition, go with the malaria. If the options are falciparum, parasites, right, protozoa. So go with the malaria. If nephrotic syndrome is not there, then only have to go with falciparum. So patient with cervical lymphadenopathy with positive dye test, what is your problem? What is your probable diagnosis? See, cervical lymphadenopathy can occur in any type of disease. But what if you see the options, protozoa means cervical lymphadenopathy is most common in toxoplasmosis. And one more clue what they are giving here is, that is the main clue, positive dye test. You know, the gold standard test for toxoplasmosis is Sabin-Feldman dye test. What is that? Sabin-Feldman dye test is the gold standard test, sometimes simply called as dye test. Therefore, gold standard test they have given. Therefore, here the answer is toxoplasmosis. There is no doubt in that. The main clue is positive dye test, Sabin-Feldman dye test, right? Cervical lymphadenopathy is the clinical manifestation of toxoplasmosis in adults. So 11th question, a baby born to the mother suffering from toxoplasmosis, because toxoplasmosis is a congenital infection, there is chances that baby would have acquired the infection. Diagnosis of congenital toxoplasmosis can be made by, see, forget about congenital toxoplasmosis. any congenital infection, we diagnose by detecting IgM. We diagnose by detecting IgM, otherwise IgA, but always IgM is having good sensitivity. IgM is having good sensitivity. We usually we do not use IgG, because with the IgG can transfer through the placenta from mother to baby. Even though the baby is not suffering from infection, congenital infection, the baby would have IgG antibodies, because as the blood passed through from mother to baby through via placenta, IgG, because mother is suffering from the infection, mother is having IgG, right? Because mother is suffering from the infection, that IgG would have passed, this IgG would have passed to the baby, would have been passed to baby also. So if you detect IgG in the baby, you cannot say baby is suffering from the disease or not. If that IgG is from the baby, then you can say. If that IgG is from the mother, then you cannot say that baby is suffering from the congenital infection. That's why we always diagnose by IgM or IgA, but IgM is always better because it is having high sensitivity. But in case of congenital toxoplasmosis, always IgA is better than IgM, because IgA is having good sensitivity. Compared to IgM. This is the difference regarding congenital toxoplasmosis. With that, now if you see the answer, so IgM, okay, anyways, this is the concept. Anyways, here we have to search for either IgM or IgG. IgA is not given, so IgM is the better answer. So IgM antibodies in toxoplasma in the mother, or IgM antibodies of toxoplasma in the fetus. Now read the question. Baby born to the mother suffering from toxoplasmosis. Diagnosis of congenital toxoplasmosis. Congenital toxoplasmosis means toxoplasmosis in baby, whether the baby has developed the infection or not. For that, you have to detect the antibodies in the baby's blood. Therefore, IgM antibodies against toxoplasma in the fetus is the best answer. Right? That is the best answer for this question. Now, all of the following helps in diagnosing congenital toxoplasmosis, except is very important. IgA is better than IgM detection. I told yes, IgA is better than IgM detection. Just now I explained. In all the congenital infection, IgM is better, but in toxoplasma, IgA is better. Okay, right answer. Diagnosed by detection of IgM in cord blood. Yes, you can diagnose it by IgM also. I said IgA is better than IgM, but I never told you cannot diagnose by IgM. You can also you can diagnose by both IgA and IgM. Better is IgA. Therefore, diagnosed by detection of IgM in cord blood, yes, you can diagnose. There is no doubt in that. With IgM, you can diagnose, but sensitivity is less. Dye test is the gold standard test and it detects IgG. Yes, dye test is the gold standard test and detects IgG. Avidity must be done to differentiate IgA and IgM. So this is the wrong answer. So this is the answer for 12th question. Avidity test is used to differentiate acute infection or chronic infection. Acute infection or chronic infection based on IgG. We all know that acute and chronic infection is based on IgM and IgG. If IgM is there, acute infection. If IgG is there, acute infection. So can you diagnose acute or chronic based on IgG? Only IgG? Yes, it is possible. Avidity test. If you perform avidity test of IgG, if avidity is low, you can say it is an acute infection. If avidity high, then you can say it is a chronic infection, because avidity increases with time. So low avidity means earlier infection, that is acute infection. High avidity means later part of the infection, that is chronic infection. So answer is D for this question. 13. Auto-infection is seen in all the following parasites except auto-infection. So auto-infection, you know that you have to remember 4 parasites, 2 cystodes and 2 nematodes. Which are the 2 cystodes which causes auto-infection? So first is Taenia solium, second is H. nana, and nematodes, so Strongyloides stercoralis, and one more is Enterobius vermicularis. So these are the 4 which causes auto-infection. Now answer is all except. So Strongyloides, yes sir, Strongyloides can cause. Taenia solium, yes sir, Taenia solium cause. H. nana, yes sir, H. nana can cause. Trichuris trichura, so answer is Trichuris trichura here, which does not cause auto-infection. Next, moving on to the next question, 14th question. Which among the following parasite does not enter human body via skin? See, larva can enter by penetrating the skin or through the ingestion. So now they are asking which does not enter through the human body via skin. Ankylostoma, is a hookworm, enter via skin. Strongyloides enter via skin. Trichinella, necator is also hookworm, enter via skin. So trichinella, so the root is ingestion. The root is ingestion, not skin penetration. Therefore, the answer is C. Therefore, the answer is C. So, 15th question, fish acts as an intermediate host. Fish acts as an intermediate host in. So, fish can act as intermediate host in dilatum. Dilatum, yes. Clonarchis sinensis, yes. Strongyloides, no intermediate host. So nematodes, they don't have intermediate host. So there is no intermediate host in Strongyloides. So H. nana also usually does not have no intermediate host. No intermediate host in 80% of the condition. In 80% of the condition, there is no intermediate host. But in 20% of cases, there is intermediate host, and the intermediate host is rat flea. Intermediate host is rat flea. So in this question, both the answers are right. Dilatum and Clonarchis sinensis. Both the answers are right. Right. If you have to select one, better to go with dilatum, because among the cystodes, only dilatum is having fish as an intermediate host. Whereas Clonarchis is a trematode. In the trematodes, sir, there are so many trematodes which are having fish as a intermediate host. Therefore, better to opt dilatum, because dilatum is an exception among cystodes. Whereas Clonarchis sinensis, it is common among trematodes. Fish is as an intermediate host is very common among the trematodes. So better answer is dilatum here. If a PGI type of question, you can select both A and B. So 16th question, a patient with filariasis on peripheral blood smear examination showed microfilaria with no sheath surrounding it. Okay, filariasis, microfilaria is seen in peripheral blood examination, no sheath. Right. So, sir, all the important filarial worms are sheathed. Wuchereria bancrofti and Brugia-Malai, they causes what? Lymphatic filariasis. Sir, Lova and Onchocerca volvulus, they causes subcutaneous filariasis. All of them are sheathed except Onchocerca volvulus, which is not sheathed. So microfilaria, there are two types of microfilaria. Microfilaria may cover by sheath. So first point, microfilaria is the larval form. Microfilaria is the larval form of filarial worm, and some may have sheath surrounding them, some may do not have sheath. So the one which is not having sheath is Onchocerca volvulus, very, very important. Next, 17. Bovine stool are not diagnostic significance in. If you see, bovine stool are not diagnostic significance. So now the question is based on Vovoparus, Vovoviviparus and Viviparus. See, Vovoparus means the worms which lay the egg. Viviparus means the worms which directly give birth to the young ones, that is larva. There is no egg in Viviparus. Ovoviviparus means they lay the egg, but egg immediately hatch out into larva. So in the stool, you cannot see the egg, because egg immediately hatch out into larva, and larva is excreted in the stool. Therefore, if you see here, so the question is ova means egg. Bovine stool are not diagnostic. Vova is seen in Trichuris trichura. Yes. Ankylostoma. Yes. Strongyloides stercoralis is the only Vovoviviparus. Strongyloides stercoralis is the only Vovoviviparus. That means it will lay the egg in the human intestine, but egg never, you cannot see egg in the stool examination, because egg immediately hatch out into the larva in the intestine itself, and larva is passed in the stool. Therefore, the answer is Strongyloides. Most of the students, they have doubt, why not Enterobius vermicularis? Because we know that Enterobius vermicularis is a pinworm. So these worms, they come out of the anal canal in the night time, and they lay the egg in the perianal region. So usually egg is not passed in the stool, because egg is present in the perianal region. That's why to diagnose Enterobius vermicularis, what we take is NIH swab, right? NIH swab, that swab we have to roll in the perianal area, then we have to look under the microscope for the X of Enterobius vermicularis. Yes, sir, possible? Okay, sir, understood now. But in Enterobius vermicularis, if I ask you, is it possible to see the egg in the stool? Yes, sir, because eggs are in the perianal area. While passing the stool, there is possibility that egg may come in the stool, but very rarely and very less in number. Very rarely eggs are seen in the stool, and very less in number, because eggs are in perianal area only, and stool is coming from the anal area. So there are possible that egg may come in the stool also. But in Strongyloides, the eggs are never seen in the stool, because eggs will immediately, as soon as the larva lay the egg, immediately they will hatch out into larva. As soon as the adult worm lay the egg, immediately they will hatch out into the larva. So among these, the best answer is strongyloides. Sir, next is image based question. Sir, which of the following parasite life cycle is shown in the below? I have told you people, if you want to identify the life cycle as an image based question, which life cycle, then don't bother about seeing all those structures which are there. Look for the adult worm. What is the adult worm here? Sir, this is the adult worm. What is this? Sir, this is a flatworm leaf-like. Flatworm leaf-like means flukes. Flukes means these are trematodes. These are trematodes. And it goes in favor of fasciola. So there are two fasciolas, sir, fasciola hepatica and fasciola busci. Fasciola hepatica, it is having a conical projection, whereas fasciola busci, there is no conical projection. So now if you see the adult worm, you can easily identify this is fasciola hepatica, therefore answer A. Now next question. So 19th question. A patient, again image based question, a patient presented with iron deficiency anemia on stool examination showed the following egg, which is the parasite responsible. If you see this egg, so this is the egg, first point, which is oval in shape, right, which is having blastomere. See, this is one blastomere, this is two blastomere, this is T, and this is 4. So 4 blastomeres. So embryo in blastomere stage, oval shape of egg, goes in favor of hookworm, and the hookworm which is present in the option is Ankylostoma duodenale. For this the answer is hookworm, that is A. Next, the question, a patient presented with itching in the groin region which usually aggravates during the night time and on examination diagnosed as Tinea cruris. Directly they have given the diagnosis Tinea cruris, which is a dermatophyte infection. See, there are so many Tinea infection or dermatophyte infection. Dermatophyte infection is also known as Tinea infection. First point. Second point, so there are so many Tinea infection. One is Tinea capitis. Then all other Tinea infection like Tinea cruris, Tinea manum, Tinea corporis, Tinea barbae, Tinea fasciae, Tinea pedis. Now, if you talk about most common organism or most common dermatophyte causing Tinea capitis is different, because there are 4 types of Tinea capitis: Chirion, Favus, Ectothrix, and Endothrix. These are the 4 types of Tinea capitis, and most common organism is different for all these 4. But all other Tinea infection, the most common dermatophyte causing infection is Trichophyton rubrum. So, can other dermatophytes, epidermophyton and microsporum, can cause Tinea infection? Yes, they can cause. But if I ask you, among all these, which is the most common, which is causing all other Tinea infection? Answer is Tinea rubrum. Therefore, they have given Tinea cruris, which is other type of Tinea infection, that is other than Tinea capitis. Therefore, you have to look for the answer. Tinea rubrum is the most common. Sir, can other cause Tinea cruris? Canis, varicosum tonsurens, maybe they can cause, but very important, the most common is Tinea rubrum. A gardener has multiple vesicles on the hand and multiple eruptions along lymphatics. See, multiple eruptions along the lymphatics. Clinical based question again. It is the characteristic feature of sporotrichosis. Very simple. Direct answer, sporotrichosis caused by Sporothrix shenki. No other question. Characteristic clinical manifestation, multiple eruptions along the lymphatics, right? Sporothrix shenki. Sir, phyoid fungi means darkly pigmented fungi, demeticious fungi, producing sclerotic bodies. See, there are 2 types of phyoid fungi. One group they produce sclerotic bodies, another group they do not produce sclerotic bodies. The one which produce sclerotic bodies causes chromoblastomycosis. The other group which does not produce sclerotic bodies, they causes pheohypomycosis. Therefore, these are the fungi, phyoid fungi, which produces sclerotic bodies. Therefore, they cause chromoblastomycosis. Direct answer. So 23, patient present with candidiasis positive for Raynaud-Brody phenomenon. Very important. Raynaud-Brody phenomenon is nothing but GTT test, germ tube test. Germ tube test positive in only 2 Candida species, Candida albicans and Candida dublinensis. Candida albicans and Candida dublinensis. How to differentiate these two? There are various methods, but very important method is, so Candida albicans can grow at 42 degrees Celsius, but Candida dublinensis cannot grow at 42 degrees Celsius. So growth at 42 degrees Celsius, S for albicans, no for dublinensis. This is the main thing. How we can differentiate albicans and dublinensis? First, Raynaud's-Brody phenomenon or germ tube test. See, if this is the yeast, this is the germ tube, right? Germ tube, there is no constriction. So germ tube is formed only in albicans and dublinensis. Now, if you see the answer here, albicans is the answer. Very simple and direct question. So next question, 24. A vitreous aspirate from a case of metastatic endophthalmitis on culture yields gram positive but oval cells. First is gram positive oval cells, means yeast cells. Yeast cells are present only in two types of fungi, yeast and yeast like. Yeast and yeast like, right? Yeast are having only oval cells, yeast like are having oval cells along with hyphae, pseudo hyphae. So now whether you have to see whether pseudo hyphae is there or not. Aspirate the grams to show presence of pseudo hyphae. Yes, pseudo hyphae. Therefore, the organism belongs to yeast like, not yeast. Yeast means only oval cells will be there, no hyphae. So yeast like means oval cells with pseudo hyphae, and the important organism yeast like is Candida, which is having yeast cells and pseudo hyphae. Very simple, very simple. So sir, 25, elderly diabetic. If you see a diabetic patient, most probably the in diabetic patient, the most common fungal infection is mucormycosis. Mucormycosis. So elderly diabetic. So question started with elderly diabetic, and if you see mucor, most of them they jump to mucor. But in these type of questions, before answering mucor, you have to look for the septae. Whether the septae are you have to look for the hyphae. Whether the hyphae are septate or aseptate. Now you read the question, look for the hyphae. Sir, hyphae are branching septate hyphae. Septate hyphae. Once you should see diabetes and options are fungi, suddenly no need to read the entire question. Suddenly jump to look for the hyphae, whether the hyphae are septate or aseptate. If hyphae are septate, then it goes in favor of aspergillus. Aspergillus. If hyphae are aseptate, then you know that you have to remember the aseptate hyphae in the mnemonic RAM. R for rhizopus, A for absidia, M for mucor. That is mucormycosis causing agents. They are aseptate hyphae. Though mucormycosis is very common in diabetic, it doesn't mean that aspergillosis may not occur in diabetes. Aspergillosis can also occur in diabetes. There is no doubt in that. That's why once you see diabetes in the question, suddenly don't jump to the answer mucormycosis. Look for the hyphae and confirm whether septate or aseptate. If they are aseptate, then only you have to go for mucormycosis. If they are septate, your answer should be aspergillus. Therefore, the answer is aspergillus for this question. So next question, a patient suffering from invasive fungal infection, 1,3-beta-D-glucan, right? Invasive marker. See, there are two invasive markers. There are two invasive markers. One is 1,3-BDG, beta-D-glucan, and second is, sir, galactomannan. Second is galactomannan. These are the two markers for invasive fungal infection. 1,3-BDG is a marker for candidiasis, and galactomannan is a marker for aspergillosis, right? Aspergillosis. Okay, fine, sir. But 1,3-BDG can also be present in, along with the candida, they are also present in aspergillus, and they are also present in pneumocystis cerevisiae. Pneumocystis cerevisiae. Okay, fine. Now see the question, 1,3-beta-D-glucan can identify all of the organisms except. Now you have to look for the three organisms, Candida, Aspergillus, and pneumocystis. So Candida, aspergillosis, yes. Pneumocystis, yes. Candidiasis, yes. So it is not seen in cryptococcosis. Not seen in cryptococcosis. Capsule prevents the release of BDG into the blood in cryptococcosis. Very important point. So this is the answer. Otherwise, in all these three cases, BDG is seen, but it is an invasive marker only for candidiasis. So next question, identify the following image, organism shown in the image. See the organism, what is shown in the image is, see this is the hyphae. These are the hyphae which is dividing into two. Again hyphae, this is dividing into two. Again this is dividing into two. So each and every hyphae is dividing into two. This type of branching is known as dichotomous branching. Di means two. Every hyphae will divide into two. Dichotomous branching. So dichotomous branching seen in case of characteristic feature of aspergillus. Direct question, no doubt in that. Next question, sir, 28. Of image based question, a farmer residing develop a varicose lesion. They are the characteristic feature of varicose lesions, are the characteristic lesions of chromoblastomycosis and pheohypomycosis, which are caused by darkly pigmented or pheoid fungi. So varicose lesion to thorn prick injury, histopathological examination of the lesion showed the following. So these are nothing but darkly pigmented, right? Darkly pigmented, golden yellow or brown in color, darkly pigmented, and these are round shaped bodies, right? These are round shaped bodies. These are nothing but sclerotic bodies. Just I mentioned you a few minutes before, the pheoid fungi which produces sclerotic bodies, they causes chromoblastomycosis, and the pheoid fungi which does not produce sclerotic bodies, they causes pheohypomycosis. Very simple. Two types of diseases, chromoblastomycosis and pheohypomycosis. Therefore, these are nothing but sclerotic bodies. So the answer is chromoblastomycosis. The next question, Sir, HIV patient presented with fever and diarrhea for weeks. First of all, HIV patient means immunocompromised condition. Patient was started on cotrimoxazole. Cotrimoxazole is a drug of choice for opportunistic infection in immunodeficiency condition. So patient is suffering from opportunistic infection, that's why patient is on cotrimoxazole. Diarrhea responded but continued to have fever. Bone marrow aspirate show the following picture. What is the organism? If you see the following picture, so this is first, what is this picture? So this is peripheral blood smear, because RBCs are there. Because RBCs are there, first identify what is this. It is a peripheral blood smear. Second, what is this? This is a macrophage. What is this? This is a macrophage. Now within the macrophage, see, these round cells are yeast cells. Round cells are yeast cells. Yeast cells. What is this? Sir, the only intracellular yeast. This is the intracellular yeast. The only intracellular fungi, not yeast. The only intracellular fungi is histoplasma. The only intracellular fungi is histoplasma, and we know that histoplasma is a dimorphic fungi. Histoplasma is a dimorphic fungi. That means at body temperature they are present in the yeast form, and if you culture in the laboratory at 25 degrees Celsius on SDA, they will grow as mold form. So sample is taken from the body. So body temperature is 37. In the sample they always present as yeast. Therefore this is an intracellular yeast. So the answer is histoplasma. Hope it is clear. It is nothing but histoplasma. So intracellular, present within the macrophage. Present within the macrophage. So next question 30. Which of the following assay can be used for virus quantification? You know that there are two assays used for virus quantification, POC assay and plaque assay, and you also know that POC assay is done on chorioallantoic membrane, which is an area present in embryonated egg, and plaque assay, sir, it is usually done on tissue culture. With the, we have to look for plaque assay or POC assay. So there is a plaque assay here which is done on tissue culture for virus quantification. Very simple, this is the answer. So true about interferon. So interferon is host specific or viral specific. So interferon is host specific. We know that. So interferon is a protein. Interferon is a protein which is not specific to any virus. It is non-specific to viruses because it can act against all the viruses. Therefore it is non-specific to virus. Therefore it is host specific. Direct question, direct answer. Next question, sir, 32. Which of the following is a primary cell line? So the primary cell line is chick embryo fibroblast, whereas WI38 is a diploid cell line. It is a diploid cell line, and HeLa and Vero are continuous cell line, right? You know that there are three types of cell line: primary cell line, diploid cell line, and continuous cell line. Example for primary cell line is chick embryo fibroblast, and for diploid cell line it is WI38, and for continuous cell line it is HeLa and Vero cells, right? Next 33 question. Which of the following is not a RNA virus? You know how to remember DNA viruses and RNA viruses, neatly explained in my lecture. So among these, which is not a RNA virus? So for the answer is, sir, Ebola is RNA virus. SV40, answer is SV40, because SV40 comes under Papoviridae family. And Papoviridae family is a DNA virus family. It's a DNA virus family. All other are RNA viruses. Ebola belongs to Filoviridae family. Rabies belongs to Rhabdoviridae family. And vesicular stomatitis virus also belongs to Rhabdoviridae family along with the rabies. So Papoviridae is the DNA virus family. Therefore answer is SV40. It is a direct question. So how to remember? If you go through my lecture, you can easily come to know how to remember DNA viruses and RNA viruses very easily. All of the, and those who have already attended, I know you can easily identify that. All of the following vaccines are developed from embryonated egg, except, you know that the vaccines which are prepared in the embryonated egg, I call them as ER vaccines. What are ER vaccines? Sir, yellow fever vaccine. Y for yellow fever, I for influenza, and R for rabies. So ER vaccines are the vaccines which are prepared in the embryonated egg. Look for the yellow fever, influenza, and rabies. So answer, influenza is here, hepatitis A is not, okay, yellow fever is here. Sorry, the question is, so this is what the mistake happens if we hurry up. I am hurrying up because I have to finish this discussion in a very short time. That's why all of the following vaccines developed in embryonated egg except. Therefore, except means you have to look for ER vaccines and you have to rule out ER vaccines. So rule out influenza, rule out yellow fever. So the answer is hepatitis A and cytomegalovirus. Both the answers are possible here. You cannot select one best answer here. We cannot select one best answer because both the hepatitis C and CMV, they cannot be produced in the embryonated egg. Therefore, both the answers are right. It is very difficult to choose one answer. Maybe there is some problem with the options. Maybe there is some problem with the options which I have chosen here. So both the answers are right. You cannot choose one appropriate answer. If you have attempted this test and if you have chosen either of the one, then your answer is right, considered as the right answer. The following is not a live vaccine. You know how to remember live vaccines. So you know that measles vaccine, MMR vaccine is a live vaccine. BCG vaccine is a live vaccine. Sir, yellow fever is having both live and killed vaccine. Yellow fever is having both live and killed vaccine, but Salk vaccine is a killed vaccine, which is nothing but IPV, that is injectable polio virus. So for the best answer is Salk vaccine, because that is the only killed vaccine. Though yellow fever is having killed vaccine, but yellow fever is having live vaccine also. Therefore, better answer is Salk vaccine for this. Interferon gamma is secreted by, you know that interferon gamma is secreted by activated T cells and NK cells. Activated T cells and NK cells secretes interferon gamma. Therefore, the answer is activated T cell. You know that interferon alpha is secreted by monocytes, that is leukocytes. Interferon beta is secreted by fibroblasts. So, interferon gamma is secreted by activated T cells and NK cells. Right? Very important. Now, sir, next question. Virus isolated from patient sample showed segmented genome. Oh, segmented genome. All of the following organisms are possible differential diagnosis except. Which are the segmented viruses? So, segmented viruses are Rambo viruses. We already know that. Rambo means M is silent. Sir, R for Rhioviridae family, A for Arinaviridae family, and B for Buniaviridae family, and O for Orthomyxoviridae family, right? So these are the Rambo viruses. There are only 4 families. So the important member in Rhioviridae family is rotavirus. Arinaviridae family's important member is Lassa fever virus. And Buniaviridae important member is hantavirus. Orthomyxoviridae family important member is influenza virus. Therefore, these are the viruses which are segmented. And you know that, sir, Rota is having the highest segment, 11 segment, and Arena, Bunya, and Orthomyxo, sir, increasing order 2, 3, 8. So these are the segments. Highest segments present with Rota, and then increasing order 2, 3, 8. Arena, Bunya, Orthomyxo, they're having 2 segment, 3 segment, and 8 segment. Now, read the question. Virus isolated from patient sample showed segmented genome. All of the following are possible except. So look for the Rambo. So Rio is there. Okay, fine. Influenza is there. Yeah, influenza is orthomyxo. Okay, Bunya is there. Okay, for Bunya. Sir, Rhabdo. Don't get confused. R is for Rio, which is a rota, not Rhabdo. So Rhabdo is having non-segmented genome. All these 3 are having segmented genome. Very simple. The answer is Rhabdo. So next question 38. Serological test of patient shows HBs negative. I told you always first in this type of question, hepatitis B related serological based question, first look for HBsAg. If HBsAg is negative, sir, 2 possibilities. What are the 2 possibilities? One is patient is in the recovery state. Patient has got the infection and he is in the recovery state. That's why antigen has disappeared. In the recovery stage, antigen will disappear. Only antibodies will be there. Otherwise, the patient would have taken vaccination, sir. Vaccination, hepatitis B vaccine. Hepatitis B vaccine mainly consists of HBs antigen only. Vaccine consists of only HBs antigen because hepatitis B vaccine is a subunit vaccine. It consists of only 1 unit HBsAg. So because if somebody has taken the vaccine, therefore antibodies will be there in his blood also. So now what to do? Immediately in this question, immediately look for HBsAg whether it is positive or not. If you look for HBsAg, yes sir, anti-HBsAg is positive. Therefore HBsAg is there. So now 2 possibilities, it can be vaccination or it can be recovery. Now immediately we have to look for one more antibody. So one more antibody, sir, HBC is negative, whereas HBC IgG-AB is positive. Okay, IgM HBC is negative, whereas IgG-HBC is positive. That means if there is more than one antibody positive along with HBs, if there are other 2 antibodies. If one of the other 2 antibodies or all other 2 antibodies are positive, that goes in favor of recovery, right? In case of vaccination, only anti-HBs will be there because vaccine contains only HBsAg. So if only anti-HBs antibody is there, you can say it is vaccination along with anti-HBs antibody. If there is any other antibody present, then that will not favor vaccination, that will go in favor of natural infection, because in natural infection all the three antibodies will be there: anti-HBs, anti-HBc and anti-HBe. Therefore here answer is recovery, sir. Recovery from the infection of hepatitis B, because HBsCAg is negative and there are, along with HBs antibody, there is one more antibody which is positive, IgG anti-HBc. Therefore it is recovery. So next, immunocompromised patient presented with shingles on forehead. So shingles on forehead, nothing but herpes zoster, nothing but herpes zoster. And herpes zoster is not caused by herpes simplex. Herpes zoster is caused on reactivation of varicella zoster virus, and varicella zoster virus is the human herpes virus 3. Varicella zoster virus is human herpes virus 3. Therefore answer is HHV3. HHV3. Direct question. And next questions are 40. A neonate presented with hepatosplenomegaly. Okay, hepatosplenomegaly. His urine was stained with Giemsa stain, which reveals owl eye appearance. So owl eye appearance is the characteristic inclusion bodies in cytomegalovirus. Very simple, direct question, direct answer, right? Based on inclusion bodies. Next question, which of the following is a receptor for EBV? Direct question, sir. The receptors for EBV is present on B cell. B cell. What are the receptors for EBV infection? Sir, CD21 and CR2, these are the receptors for EBV infection. EBV infection. So search for CD21 and CR2. So answer is CR2. CR2. Direct question, right? 42. A patient presented with symptoms of slow viral disease diagnosed to have PML. PML means progressive multifocal leukoencephalopathy caused by JC virus. Caused by JC virus. So answer is, what is the causative agent? Sir, causative agent is JC virus. Direct question. PML is caused by, PML is progressive multifocal leukoencephalopathy, which is a slow viral disease. There are so many slow viral diseases classified into type A, type B and type C. So whatever it is, PML caused by JC virus, which belongs to type C slow viral disease. PML is a type C slow viral disease. Next question, a patient is resistant to HIV infection. So resistant to HIV infection, it is possible only due to the mutation of CX0R4. There are no other receptors reported mutation. You know that for HIV, the main receptor is CD4 receptor, and co-receptors are, sir, CCR5 and CXCR4. So there are reported cases of CCR5 mutation in the world. In those patients where the CCR5 co-receptor is mutated, therefore HIV is not able to bind to the host cell. If it is not able to bind, then it cannot enter. If it cannot enter, it cannot multiply. If it cannot multiply, it cannot cause infection. So those individuals are HIV resistant. So CCR5 mutation. So answer is only one, CCR5. So next question, disease transmitted by Culex mosquito. So Culex mosquito means you have to remember only two diseases. So this is a PGI type of question. Multiple answers can be right. So diseases transmitted by Culex, there are possibility that there are two important infection. One is parasitic infection, that is filariasis. One more is viral infection, that is Japanese encephalitis. So these are the two important diseases transmitted by Culex. Chikungunya transmitted by Aedes. Yellow fever transmitted by Aedes. So Rift Valley fever transmitted mainly by Aedes. And rarely it can also transmitted by Culex. Rarely it can also be transmitted by Culex. Therefore Rift Valley fever can also be the answer here, because rarely Culex can also transmit the Rift Valley fever. So answer is ADE here, right? With this, the next question, acute hemorrhagic conjunctivitis is caused by, I told you there are two types of conjunctivitis: follicular conjunctivitis and hemorrhagic conjunctivitis. Follicular conjunctivitis and hemorrhagic conjunctivitis. Follicular conjunctivitis caused by adenovirus 37 serotypes, and hemorrhagic conjunctivitis caused by Coxsackie A virus serotype 24 and enterovirus serotype 70. Therefore answer is 70, caused by the enterovirus serotype. So never get confused between follicular and hemorrhagic conjunctivitis. Follicular by adenovirus and hemorrhagic by Coxsackie and enterovirus. So serotypes are important: adenovirus 37, Coxsackie A24 and enterovirus 70. So direct question, answer is enterovirus 70. So Harpangina is caused by Herpes angina is caused by mainly enteroviruses. Herpes angina is caused by mainly enteroviruses. Direct question, direct answer. A baby diagnosed to have infantile pericarditis and myocarditis. Pericarditis and myocarditis. Direct question, Coxsackie B. Coxsackie B. Right? See, we'll go to previous question. Herpes angina. I will mention here. So there is family known as enterovirus subfamily, belongs to Picornaviridae family. So there are so many enteroviruses. In that, Coxsackie A, Coxsackie A and Coxsackie B, these are the two important enteroviruses. These are the two important enteroviruses. We know that A24 causes hemorrhagic conjunctivitis. Just now we mentioned in the previous question, hemorrhagic conjunctivitis, and uh, other serotypes also causes herpangina. Other serotypes also causes herpangina, and HFMD, that is hand, foot, mouth disease. So these are the three diseases caused by Coxsackie A, and Coxsackie B causes muscular disease, muscle diseases, especially myocarditis, right? So this is the answer, enteroviruses. So there are so many enteroviruses. Important, what I'm mentioning is just Coxsackie A and Coxsackie B. Otherwise there are so many. Polio is also enterovirus, hepatitis A is also enterovirus, echovirus is also enterovirus, right? So the answer is herpes angina is caused by enterovirus. Among the enterovirus, herpes angina is caused by mainly Coxsackie A, whereas Coxsackie B causes myocarditis. Therefore answer is Coxsackie B here, right? Next question, true about antigenic drift. Antigenic drift caused by, sir, antigenic drift, see, there are influenza A and influenza B, right? There are 4 serotypes of influenza. Influenza D causes infection only in animal, so not important. A, B, C are the 3 which causes infection in humans. C is nowadays not causing infection, so A, B are the most common serotypes causing infection in human. Sir, A can cause both pandemic and epidemic. A can cause both pandemic and epidemic, and B can cause only epidemic. And you know that pandemic is due to antigenic shift. Pandemicity is due to antigenic shift, and epidemicity is due to antigenic drift. And antigenic shift is to genetic reassortment. It is due to genetic reassortment, and antigenic drift is due to point mutation. So these are the points which you have to remember. Influenza A causes both pandemicity and epidemicity. Pandemicity is due to shift is due to genetic reassortment, and epidemicity is caused by both influenza A and influenza B. It is due to antigenic drift. Antigenic drift is due to point mutation. Now they are asking about antigenic drift caused by influenza A. Yes sir, right answer. Leads to epidemics, seasonal epidemics. Yes sir, right answer. Leads to pandemic. Yes sir, right answer. Arises due to frame shift mutation. No, this is the wrong answer. So it is due to point mutation, not frame shift mutation. It is due to point mutation, not frame shift mutation. Therefore answer is D. Next question 49. Clear cut. The following disease is caused by. Clearly here indicated HFMD. This is HFMD, hand, foot, mouth disease. Therefore answer is Coxsackie virus. Direct question. The last question 50. The following picture is the life cycle of which virus? If you see this virus, you know that I told you, if the life cycle is given, you have to see for the adult worm or the adult virus. If you see the virus here, to identify the virus, nucleic acid is very important. What is this nucleic acid? So this nucleic acid is double-stranded nucleic acid, circular, and the inner strand is incomplete. That is partially double-stranded circular nucleic acid. Therefore this goes in favor of hepatitis B. So with this we have completed the quick discussion of the first 50 questions. Hope you enjoyed this session. Hope you have understood all the things, how to approach the question and how to find out the answer. And if you want any further information, then you can follow the further videos. Okay, fine. Thank you.